Hi guys, we're down in Stanford right now where we are viewing this 3-bed detached property with a double garage here, and what we're going to be working out today is if we're going to flip it, rent it, live in it or avoid it. Let's jump straight in. So as I said, this is a 3-bed detached property and there is opportunity with this which I'll go through, but first things first as we're coming in is it's just a bit of a tired property, and as we're going to go throughout you'll see that actually fresh liquor paint and carpets is about the only way that we're looking to add value to this property right now, but there's something unique with this property that gives it a twist that actually gives a potential of £100,000 in profit. Let's jump into the next room and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So as you can see coming into the kitchen, it's nice, and I'm saying that in a negative way because when I'm sort of viewing these properties, what I'm looking for is where can I add value, and where there's not value to add, normally that means you're making money on the purchase price of the property. And you can see the flooring's nice, you know, the radiators are a little bit dated, so maybe I'd do those, but the kitchen is decent. Like, it's not wow, you look at it, it's incredible, but it's clean, it's decent nick, everything's in place, and you'd have a hard time, you know, if you were refurbishing this to rip it out in its current standard and do it up. And the layout's pretty good as well. So even out here, you've got a nice sized conservatory where maybe you could have your dining room table, and it's got quite a large garden as well. And even that's really well kept. So the struggle that I'm feeling right now is the house is too nice, and it's not about whether I live here or not, which we'll go through, is where am I going to add value to this property. The further south you go, the easier the stairs seem to get. It's almost like us southerners are a weaker breed than the north. If you remember from the previous property reviews where I'm basically like that up the stairs, and these are bloody flatline. Anyway, property similar up here, like, and really try to focus on this. The bathroom, nice enough. The bedrooms, nice enough. Come in here. You know, maybe in here you'd strip this off, but again, it's nice enough. The carpets, they're nice enough. Everything here is nice enough. Jamie, why are you bitching about that? Well, as an investor, how are you going to add value? I'd rather come in here and it stinks of piss, if I'm completely honest, or they're horrible carpets, or it's horrible walls, or something like that, because then it puts off the open market buyer. And the problem with this is it needs quite a lot of work done to it, despite the way it looks. But also for the open market buyer, it kind of looks quite appealing, and so you're going to get those offers and competition, and still we need to be asking ourselves, where are we going to add value? And it's back downstairs. So right now I'm stood in the middle of the opportunity, and it should be obvious as we're going around, but I'm not going to point it out. So come through and just see the sort of space. So we're next to the kitchen right now. We've got this weird sort of utility room. And then just go through here, we've got this big garage along here, and then just next door we've got the garage as well, and then you've got this door out the back and a really decent sized garden. So this is where that £100,000 is going to come from. What, the garage? No. It's the amount of space available. So as you can see, you've got these massive double garages that, let's face it, who really utilizes these anymore? And actually what you'll be able to see is if you look at the size of this house from the other side of the road, it can easily be copy and pasted over. Now obviously what I'm talking about is knocking down the garages and building a new property, essentially getting 2 houses for the price of 1. Now obviously you need to look at planning for this, and that's the next steps of what I'd be looking into, but it looks very promising from first sight. So with that in mind, and you'll be able to visualize it a little better from the back, I think, when we're thinking about designing this garden, a really simple minimalist approach is going to be appropriate, because if you can visualize, and maybe you can see it a bit better with these double garages here, and imagine that house copy and pasted here, then you're going to have a garden essentially coming down in this space here. Now, what you can see from the top is a lot of these gardens down there are similar sizes to what would be created here, but we're going to clear that out, have nothing in here, and just keep it really simple. And I think with the amount of space available, it's a shame about the depth of the garden, but I think it can create a really nice private space for both eventual houses that we'd be left with at the end of this. So let's run through the numbers of this property. So the overall aim of this is going to be to purchase the property, give it a bit of a tart up, get it rented out, and then whilst you're doing that, get in planning there to knock down the garages and build a new build plot. Now, the reason why I think you should look at it this way is because of the spec of the property. It's in Stamford, it's a really nice area, things get snapped up here, so you're not going to get 20% below the market value or anything like that. So it's all about adding significant value, which isn't just going to come from a normal refurb. So let's run through. You've got the purchase price of the property, which is £325,000, and then you've got your stamp duty, your legal costs, and your site survey, which adds up to £17,950. You're going to have a refurbishment of the current property, which is going to be £20,000. You've got your professional fees, like your architects, your surveyor, etc., and your consultants, which is going to be another £20,000. So that creates everything on this side of things. And then we've got, of course, knocking down and building the new build over there. So what we factored in for this property is £1,350 per square metre, and we're factoring 100 square metres on this property. It'll actually end up coming in about 90-ish, 92 square metres, but we'd rather over-egg it. So we've got another £135,000 there, giving a total of £525,000 all in. So that's really exciting, and really we need to look at the end figures. So we've got that 525,000 give or take in the property at the end. That's with a contingency as well, and around, so we've added a contingency of 10 grand in there, and also getting £11,000 back for rent over an 18-month period. We allow 18 months for these projects to allow any problems coming back from planning, etc., if it gets rejected or they ask for alterations. But of course, our aim is to get that as close to a year or lower as possible, knowing that the longer it goes on, the less money we'll end up making due to interest payments, etc., and the shorter amount of time, the more money we end up making. And now we do need to think about timing of this as well, because if we finish and it's a wrong time of year, it's going to be a struggle selling it. Whereas if we can finish this during the summer or towards the end, we're going to maximize the offers that we're getting. So with the current property as is, 325,000, we're going to spend about 20 grand on it, so 345, and then we are factoring an end sale price of 300,000. So you might think, well, that's bullshit. Like, why would you do that? That's ridiculous. But what you need to factor in is we're cutting off half of the house over there with the garages off. So it is going to lose some value over here. So despite the fact we've added 20 grand, we're taking 45 grand off. Always be conservative with your figures on these. But with the new dwelling over there, that's going to be around 100 square meters, it's going to be a new build, which typically attracts a 10% plus premium on that. We're factoring a £330,000 return on that. Total GDV, which is gross development value, the end value of the properties, are going to be 630,000. We factored in 1.2% selling cost, minus around the 525,000. We're going to be left with £105,000, which brings us to a 19.7% return on capital employed. And then if we annualize that over a 12-month period, it's going to be closer to 15%. So honestly, the minimum return on project that you want to be factoring in is 15%, just to make sure your risks are mitigated for this size property. For bigger ones, you want to be closer to 20%. We're getting a 19.7% return on that capital, which we're pretty happy with. On an annualized basis, 15% isn't the most insane value, but considering this is a low risk entry for us and the downsides are minimal and the upside potential is £105,000, I'm pretty happy with those figures overall. So the numbers might sound good, but here are 3 bad things about this property. So number 1, I might lose my money. Seriously, it all hinges on these garages. If we don't get planning for this property to develop another new build, we're going to lose potential profits of £105,000 and realistically lose a couple of grand in the whole venture, let alone the opportunity cost with all of the money ploughed into this that we could have used on other property investments. Number two is the size of the garden. So we're really fortunate in the fact that next door is a relatively small garden, and then on this side there's this big open space, so you're not going to get it all sort of around you if you like. But if you can imagine a fence along this line here, and then this is your space available. It's not tiny, but it is a relatively small space that we're going to have available. And my worry and big concern about the planners is the fact that this garden is going to be too short. And I think it will be okay and won't look too shabby, but realistically we could do with another couple of meters nicked off of that end of the garden. So the third thing with this property is, like I said throughout, it's bad enough that it actually needs a full refurb, but it's good enough that people wouldn't visualize it in that way. And what that means is most buyers would end up paying top whack for this property. So it's just too good condition as it is to add significant value if the planning were refused, increasing the chance of losing money on this property. So it's not all bad. Here are three great things about this property. Number one is the desirability. This is a really aspirational area in Stamford, and the property is quite aspirational. If you're going to move to a great area, why get a shitty little terrace property or something? But actually this is a detached property, it's 3 bedrooms, and it looked really nice once it's done up. And so I'm not worried about the demand or desirability of the property, which again de-risks me if everything does go wrong, because prices increase fairly substantially, even in the course of 6 months in this area. The second good thing about this property is the fact that the debt is getting serviced from day one. Now, obviously a big part of property investment is the fact that you can utilize other people's money. And because the property is in a decent enough spec with a bit of a tart up, some new carpets, fresh lick of paint, we're getting this tenanted from day one at around £1,000 a month, which is covering a majority of the debt that we're using to purchase this property. Great news, because if everything does fall apart, then at least you're getting your money back knowing that your investors are getting paid back on a monthly basis from day one. And the third good thing about this property is obviously the double garages, but more specifically the unique opportunity within this. It might seem really obvious in this video and as property investors because I'm guiding you through it step by step, but obviously no other person saw the opportunity to build another house here. And often when people are going around, once you point out these opportunities, it's like, yeah, obviously that's what I should have done. But a majority of people miss this. And I think that's the really great thing about a property investor is you can actually get creative with opportunities. And I love properties like this where you can see the money where most people can't. So am I going to flip it, rent in it, live in it, or avoid it? Well, you should learn by now, or know by now, I'm definitely not avoiding this opportunity. I think it's a great potential, slightly higher risk than I'm used to, but I'm definitely going to go into this property. I'm not going to live in it. It's outside of my area. I live up in Leeds, and to be honest, if I were to move, I do like Stamford, and it's definitely an area I would live in, but if I were to make that move, it'd be for a different type of house. So then it really comes to flipping it or renting it, and actually this is the first time ever I'm actually going to do both to this property. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this existing part of the property rented out, and we have found the perfect tenant. It's actually a builder that's local to the area that's gone through a bit of a personal situation. So they are going to rent the property knowing that we're going to get planning next door. They're happy to pay the rent and actually have offered to chip in and help with the contacts in the area, which is pretty good. We're then going to get planning and build up that opportunity, do the final refurbishment to this property, and then put both properties on the market and flip it on, maximizing our exit, mitigating our risk, and getting over £100,000 profit in just one deal. So if you got value from this property review and you want to see more like it, make sure to smash the like button. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more videos just like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.